It began with a silence so heartbreaking that an entire charity ballroom forgot to breathe. Hundreds of successful business leaders, reporters, and guests watched as a little boy no older than 7 broke away from his exhausted single father, ran across the polished floor, and wrapped both arms around the most powerful female CEO in the city. Instead of asking for money, food, or toys, the child looked up with trembling hope and begged for only one impossible gift. He wanted her to be his mommy, just for one day. Before anyone could react, his horrified father rushed forward, trying desperately to pull his son away, believing the moment would end in humiliation. Instead, that single innocent request uncovered wounds that had been buried for years and changed every life inside that room forever. If you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances still have the power to change lives, please take a moment to like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel to become part of our growing community that believes compassion can still make miracles happen. Graham Mercer had never imagined that life would become so quiet after losing his wife. 3 years earlier, he had been an ordinary husband with ordinary dreams, working as a furniture craftsman while raising his cheerful son, Rowan. Everything changed one bright spring afternoon when a distracted driver ignored a red light. Graham survived with broken ribs and a damaged shoulder, but his wife never came home. The hospital corridors that day stole more than the woman he loved. They also stole the easy laughter that once filled their little home. Since then, every morning began before sunrise. Graham prepared breakfast, packed lunches, worked long hours repairing antique furniture, picked Rowan up from school, cooked dinner, cleaned the house, and somehow tried to become both parents at once. He never complained because he believed his son deserved stability even if his own heart remained broken. Rowan rarely asked about expensive things. He never wanted video games or fancy holidays. The only thing he quietly wished for was something Graham could never build with his hands. Every Mother's Day at school became another reminder that every other child had someone waiting in the audience except him. Rowan smiled through those moments, but Graham always noticed the sadness hiding behind those brave little eyes. One Saturday afternoon, Graham accepted an invitation from a local children's charity that was hosting a fundraising celebration. Families from every background had been invited, and volunteers promised games, food, music, and activities for children. Graham almost declined because weekends usually meant extra work, but Rowan had not smiled much lately. Seeing his son's excitement convinced him to attend. Among the guests was Celeste Hawthorne, founder and chief executive of one of the country's fastest-growing healthcare companies. Newspapers described her as brilliant, disciplined, and nearly impossible to impress. Investors admired her sharp mind while competitors feared her confidence. Yet almost nobody knew the reason she buried herself in endless work. Years earlier, Celeste had planned a family of her own. After multiple heartbreaking miscarriages and a painful divorce that followed, she convinced herself that work was safer than hope. Every achievement became another wall protecting a heart that refused to heal. She donated millions to children's charities but always left before speaking with families because smiling children reminded her of dreams she believed she would never experience. That afternoon, she agreed to stay longer than usual to present scholarships to several children. Cameras followed her every step while reporters eagerly waited for another polished corporate speech. Meanwhile, Rowan wandered through the festival, laughing for the first time in weeks. Volunteers painted butterflies on children's faces while musicians played cheerful songs beneath colorful banners. Graham watched his son from nearby, grateful to hear genuine laughter again. Everything changed when Rowan noticed a craft table where children were decorating paper crowns for Mother's Day keepsakes. Most children proudly wrote messages for their mothers while volunteers helped them add glitter and ribbons. Rowan picked up a crown but stared at it without moving. The volunteer gently asked who he wanted to make it for. Rowan simply shrugged. After several silent seconds, he quietly placed the blank crown back onto the table and walked away. Graham saw everything. His chest tightened with guilt. No matter how hard he worked, no matter how deeply he loved his son, there remained one empty place he could never fill. A few minutes later, Celeste stepped onto the stage to deliver her speech about investing in children's futures. Cameras flashed as applause echoed across the hall. Rowan looked up at her with innocent curiosity. He noticed how every child surrounding the stage held someone's hand. Without warning, he started walking toward her. At first Graham assumed Rowan only wanted a closer look. Then the little boy climbed the small staircase. Realizing what was happening, Graham hurried after him, calling his name. The audience fell silent. Rowan reached Celeste before security could react. His tiny hands gently held hers. His eyes filled with tears that seemed far too heavy for someone so young. He softly asked if she could please be his mommy for just one day because he wanted to know what it felt like to have someone hug him like everyone else's mother did at school. The room froze. Graham reached them seconds later, his face burning with embarrassment. He apologized repeatedly, trying to pull Rowan away while fighting back tears of his own. He explained that his son meant no disrespect and had simply missed his mother every single day since she passed away. No camera flashed. No reporter spoke. Even security lowered their hands. Everyone waited to see what the powerful CEO would do. Celeste looked down at Rowan. Instead of seeing an interruption, she saw a child carrying the same loneliness she recognized inside herself. For years she had hidden behind polished speeches and business awards. Now a little boy had shattered every wall without even trying. She knelt until they were eye level. Without saying much, she gently hugged him. Rowan closed his eyes as though he were trying to memorize the feeling forever. Many guests quietly wiped away tears. Celeste then asked the charity organizers whether she could spend the afternoon joining the children's activities rather than leaving immediately. Schedules were cancelled. Meetings were postponed. For the first time in years, the city's busiest executive chose people over business. The afternoon unfolded with unexpected warmth. Celeste helped Rowan decorate the paper crown he had abandoned earlier. Together they painted bright colors across it and added a small heart in the center. Graham watched from a distance, overwhelmed by emotions he could barely understand. She joined them for lunch on the lawn outside the hall where children played beneath clear blue skies. Rowan laughed while trying to teach her a simple card game his mother had once loved. Graham noticed something remarkable. Celeste laughed too. It sounded unfamiliar, almost as though she had forgotten how. As the hours passed, reporters expected a publicity opportunity, yet Celeste repeatedly asked cameras to keep their distance. She wanted the afternoon to belong to one grieving child rather than tomorrow's headlines. Graham finally shared more of his story. He admitted that some days he feared he was failing. He worried Rowan smiled only to protect him. He confessed that every Mother's Day felt like another reminder that love alone could not erase loss. Celeste listened without interruption. For the first time in years, she spoke honestly about her own pain. She admitted she had buried herself inside boardrooms because work never reminded her of everything she had lost. Both realized grief had isolated them in different ways. Neither had intended to stop living. They simply forgot how. When the charity event ended, Rowan handed Celeste the paper crown. Instead of keeping it, he gently placed it on her head for a brief moment before hugging her again. The entire audience applauded through tears. Nobody celebrated wealth. Nobody celebrated status. They celebrated healing. Life did not magically become perfect afterwards. Graham returned to repairing furniture. Celeste returned to leading her company. But something had shifted. She began volunteering at the children's charity every month without media announcements. Graham and Rowan occasionally joined the events. A quiet friendship slowly formed. Months passed before anyone dared call it anything more. Rowan never tried replacing his mother. Celeste never tried pretending she could. Instead, they built something honest. She attended school concerts, cheered during football matches, celebrated birthdays, and encouraged Graham whenever parenthood became overwhelming. She never arrived with expensive gifts. She arrived with time. That became the greatest gift of all. Graham gradually allowed himself to hope again. Not because someone rescued him, but because someone chose to walk beside him. The little house that once echoed with silence slowly filled with conversation, laughter, homemade meals, weekend projects, and memories that no longer competed with grief but peacefully existed beside it. 1 year later, the same charity invited them back to celebrate its anniversary. This time, Graham stood beside Celeste instead of across the room. Rowan proudly walked between them. When invited to speak, Graham admitted that the bravest thing he had ever done was not raising his son alone. It was allowing people back into their lives after believing their story had already ended. Celeste spoke next. She explained that success meant very little if it never reached someone's heart. A frightened little boy had taught her that love was not measured by biology or perfection but by showing up when someone needed hope the most. Finally, Rowan stepped onto the stage holding the faded paper crown they had made together. The glitter had begun to fall away. The colors had softened. But he said it remained the most valuable thing he owned because it reminded him that one kind moment could change an entire future. The audience rose for a standing ovation. Many parents embraced their children. Some quietly called relatives they had not spoken to in years. Others signed up to volunteer before leaving the building. One child's impossible request had inspired hundreds of strangers to choose compassion over judgment. Before this story comes to an end, we'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment telling us whether you believe one act of kindness can truly change someone's life, or share a moment when compassion helped you or someone you love through a difficult season. Years later, people rarely remembered the business awards Celeste won or the impressive companies she built. They remembered the afternoon when a lonely little boy asked for a mother for just one day, and a woman with a broken heart discovered she still had enough love to answer. Graham learned that accepting help was not weakness. Rowan learned that families are sometimes formed through unexpected acts of grace rather than shared blood. Together, they proved that healing does not erase yesterday's pain, but it gives tomorrow the courage to bloom. The paper crown remained on a shelf in their home, quietly reminding everyone who visited that hope often arrives in the smallest voices, the bravest requests, and the kindest hearts. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. May this story remind you that sometimes the greatest miracle is not finding a perfect family, but discovering people willing to love each other through life's deepest scars until those scars become symbols of hope instead of pain.